you know what? Yeah, okay. There are that rare few who get it right the first time, but guess what? They eventually go on to fuck it up later. I've encountered some stuff, even some people who'd really made me kind of like now suddenly question if I wanted to do acting and filmmaking, and boom, suddenly his pilot gets cancelled. His movie bombs at the box office, like to the point of breaking film history. And his sitcom, this was really weird. It got shelved at the last minute, and then aired, and then got cancelled after one season.
Hello, Eddie. Welcome to your interview. This is exciting. All right, so we just discussed it before we started. I wanted to say, so you are an actor, as far as I know. What else do you do, my friend?
You know what? Honestly, Silas, usually if the acting work slows down, I try to get into a bit of writing as well. And
Okay.
I've got a script that I'm currently trying to get off the ground at the moment, which of course, like I'll elaborate on sort of later on in the
No
interview.
worries. No worries.
Like,
I'm just like trying to get a little bit of the info, the basics. So again, so acting, writing, and as you said before, as we just started the conversation, that you're originally from Sri Lanka but moved to Scotland uh, 20 years ago.
Yeah, September 2002. So basically, for your audience there, yeah, 2 months ago marks the 20-year anniversary of the day we came to the country. And just last month marks the 9-year anniversary of the day we became citizens as well, back in
Yes.
October 2013. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Because basically,
Amazing, yeah.
October 1st, 2013 is when I came to Glasgow. That was the first time I set foot in Scotland.
Goodness, that's amazing. So did you, because you mentioned your mum was here, like did your mum come over with you as well, like
I
for
don't know.
the
I'm
wedding?
just talking to my mom on the phone. She's back home. My whole
Oh,
family's
I
back home
see,
now.
gotcha.
It's just me.
That's amazing. Yeah. And was that like for, yeah, I actually, your audience probably might know whether it was for work or study or something.
Oh, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
want
no. That's all right. No, no. This is
to.
a conversation, my friend. Don't you worry.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
I
of
came here
course.
because of the acting. That was my main reason.
Oh, nice to become an actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great,
All right,
great.
cool. So, I mean, I just want to ask about Sri Lanka, dude. I mean, let's start with Sri Lanka. So, hang on. So, how old were you when you moved here?
So September 2002. So basically, just like 2 months shy of my fifth birthday.
Oh, you
And
were
yeah, in
wee. You
terms
were a wee lad.
of yeah, exactly, plenty of time to assimilate to the accent, and yet I
Mhm.
still sound like a Sri Lankan guy doing a terrible Scottish accent.
I wouldn't say that. I think there's
Oh well,
I'm sure the locals will sometimes pick up, the little twang, but I think you've got a fairly Scottish thing going on, my friend.
yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. And yeah, in terms of what I can tell you about Sri Lanka, of course, very proud of my heritage,
Hmm.
beautiful country. We went back for like the first time. Well, we as in like me and the rest of the family went there for holiday back in 2017. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And honestly, I can't stress enough people like just the importance of getting back in touch with your roots. Like, you
Yeah.
know, especially if you're like second generation immigrant or like your first gen, but you like me came over to the country when you were little. Because honestly, man, I tell you, freaking ignites something in you,
I
Silas. Like,
know, right? And
yeah,
that's true, man. So the reason I'm saying that because recently I just came back from a holiday in Budapest, right? And so I'm Hungarian, but born and raised in Romania. Like Transylvania is like a mixed region.
okay, gotcha,
Long
yeah.
story short, this was the first time I went to a country where my mother tongue was the majority language and it was the official language as well. And man, like I'm not a big nationalist in any way.
Yeah, of
It just
course.
felt
Oh,
nice. It just kind of was like, oh, the bus stop is in my language, and that
yeah,
sentence is in my language. It's just like it oddly felt home, even though that
of
was the
course.
first time I went there. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, Silas, if it's any consolation, that would only make you a nationalist if you said it felt really lovely and then you went on a diatribe about how you loved it.
You know what was really nice? All these other people that were in there.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like again, I just want to make it clear you can take pride in your country, you can take
Yeah,
pride in your race. But like obviously when you cross the line into like using that pride as an excuse to like discriminate, harm, and kill
absolutely.
like other races, that's when it
Yeah,
gets
well,
out of hand. You know what I
that's
mean?
absolutely. Here's the thing: you can say, we're really cool, our backs are really cool. The problem becomes when you go, but other people, as long
Yeah,
as I
yeah,
don't care how high of
exactly.
yourself you think, as you bring other people up to the same level, we're all equal, right?
They go. Exactly. That's what we need to bloody remember. Aye. Mm-hmm.
But
The one
yeah,
way.
I 100% relate to that. Being able to like go to a country, you're like, oh wow, like they're all speaking the same language. Like, ah!
Yeah. And like there are certain like oh, and there'll be like certain physical traits like I only thought were in me, and certain tics like oh I'm seeing in other people around me. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Martian finally coming back to Mars.
yeah, it's nice. Like at the end of the day, it's nice. It feels great.
Mhm.
And I've never had that experience before, so I was curious what it'd be like. I mean, in that case, I gotta ask, man. Like, so you spent 5 years in Sri Lanka, right? And then you moved to Scotland. Was that a big shift for yourself? Like, how did you adjust?
Honestly, Silas, because we were so young when we moved over, like I barely remembered anything about Sri Lanka. So the thing is, it hadn't cemented hard enough in my memory for me to register this as this kind of like big, like kind of like abrupt, unsettling shift. Like the weird thing is, like although I was very much born in Sri Lanka, I will say like I would say I was spiritually born in Scotland. You know,
Yeah,
especially
culturally
Edinburgh. Like
speaking, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like it's not just my heart; it's like my lungs, stomach, guts are all here in this city, in this country. You know,
Yeah, that's
but
fair
of
enough,
course,
man.
like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
Sri Lanka's there too.
yes, because I'm born and raised in Romania. Like I always say, like ethnically speaking, I'm Hungarian, but culturally, I'm both. Like I speak the language. I love the food. I've got friends
Exactly,
in both
exactly.
languages. So it's that's one of those. The identity thing is always fascinating. I was like, some people insist on the biology. Some people are more fluid with it. Some people are don't care about the biology at all. And then
Yeah, yeah. Like honestly, like I respect it. Like you know, if you're a citizen of the country and you're like a contributing member of society, as far as I'm concerned, you belong to that country. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whether you're like you're a Chinese immigrant living in Sweden, or I don't know, like a white immigrant living in Japan. You know.
Yeah, yeah. At some point, part of the experiences you've had and the lessons you've learned, it just becomes a part of you in a certain way. Like you can't deny
Exactly.
it.
Hmm.
That's history at some point. Like it just is part of your history. You can say whatever you want, but as far as I'm concerned, like you get to claim it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and again, like it's so long as you're not crossing over that line in where like you're kind of like strong arming over other people and putting them down and like moving
Yeah.
them out the way. When it gets into that kind of territory, that's where we've got to kind of draw a line in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. At some point, you have to respect, like, even other people will have their own definitions for their own identity. And someone might spend, 50 years in another country and say, no, no, this is where I'm from and this is what I am and I'll never become this thing. And
Hmm.
cool, fair play to you. Like, I
Yeah,
kind
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's basically like with family. At the end of the day, it's not just about or about DNA. It's about really that bond. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 absolutely. There's a massive psychological aspect to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And did that come up like growing up? Did you see any differences in the cultures? I've got so many questions because like you're the first Sri
What
Lankan
do
person on this
you mean
series.
differences in the cultures in like when I came to Sri Lanka and like comparing that from like
Well,
me growing up in Scotland or like vice versa?
a
Because
bit
I
of
mean,
both, because it can be.
Mhm,
There's always the reverse culture shock when you go to like, as you said, to your home country and you spend so much time somewhere else that you're like, oh, that's how things
yeah,
are here. Wow, okay. Or which I've experienced going back home. Or which is the other one that if you growing up in a Sri Lankan family but in a Scottish environment, you might be like, oh, that's not how we do things. Or, oh, okay, cool, that's how we do things.
I would say honestly, because I really like that term. For me, I've experienced more like reverse culture shock, and all in all, it was just kind of seeing like how humble the Sri Lankan people are there, and
Hmm.
just how tenacious they are and what what they do to survive. I mean, over there isn't like any sort of like benefit system or benefits housing system. Like you are poor, you're poor. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
you would need to either straight up beg on the street, or you're selling things on the side of the road, whether it's like mangoes, coconuts, whatever. And I think like with that, it's kind of like, and keep in mind, I'm not generalizing Sri Lanka as at the time I visited, like this kind of like decrepit third world country. Like around this time, prior to the economic crash, like we were like the most developed country in South Asia. But what I just noticed is like there's not so much a concern with the superficial. You know what I mean? This whole funny business about like how many followers you have on Instagram, how many people
Yeah.
you're with, so on and so forth. It's like, so long as like you are getting by, you have a good support network, you have people who love you and are standing by you, then you've done well in life. Then you've really truly like made it. You're happy. That's what I love.
Yeah,
Love
I mean
the
that's a
love to the
pretty
extreme.
healthy mindset, you know. It's
Oh,
always
very much so.
there's something about, like I know coming from Romania is like if I could have some of the mindsets of a Romanian person, but some of the living standards of a British person, I'd be like, mwah, you know?
Like,
As long as I can appreciate the little things, because like I come from like a working class background, single dad, and things like that. Just raised by my dad, not single dad, but raised by my dad mostly, and things like
oh
that.
yeah, you get what you
Because my
mean.
mom's still alive, so but yeah, so I learned how to appreciate little things and just take joy in them. So when I get to like experience big things, it's like you know,
It's overwhelming. Like, yeah, you can
in
actually.
a good way. It's like oh
It's funny how you mentioned that, Silas, because like for me, especially with kind of like everything that's went on with lockdown and kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm piecing things back together. Like just with how chaotic everything's been, like it's weird. Like I'm not even 25 yet, but I really already feel like I just want to slow down and just kind of like have kind of like a simple, quiet life. Because like gosh, like I'm already at the age where like just the idea of like the whole like clubbing, going out, hopping
Hey,
from.
you leave the clubs alone. There's nothing wrong with a good night of clubbing, sir.
I mean, okay, to each their own, but it's like, you know, honestly, just coming home from work and then just like cuddling up in bed and like, I don't know, like this is weirdly specific to me, watching like an old black and white cartoon, or like,
Oh, fair enough, man.
yeah, some obscure detective drama from the 80s, like, on a cold winter night. Like it's just, it is literally just everything, as the kids would say. Like it's just, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I will say, it's still kind of, I'm still glad I kind of had that sort of like hedonistic kind of like wild phase, because then at least I can get that stuff out of my system along with certain
Yeah.
stuff I put into my system during those years, um, so that way I can like, I can have that kind of exhaustive fun to be able to appreciate the kind of like smaller, simpler moments,
Yeah,
sort
I
of
mean,
things. You know?
you need to sample it a little bit. You have to be
Yeah,
careful not to get
everything
lost
in
in it. That's the thing.
moderation.
You can get lost in it. Some people genuinely prefer it. Some people just get lost in it. So you need to figure out your own stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I think a
Like
little
what works
sample
for
doesn't
you?
hurt.
What? Sorry?
I was just saying a little sample doesn't hurt, but I think I interrupted you there.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's fine. Yeah, sorry, this is so weird. I just need to get a quick swig of water.
I go for it, man. No worries.
Hey, you may not see it, but there's like a whole pile. To anyone watching, there's like a whole pile of dishes I've been procrastinating from washing,
I'm not
which
seeing
I'm
the
gonna have to.
dishes. I'm not.
I'm gonna have to get on as soon as possible, along with my laundry. See, this is what happens when I try to be a functioning adult. It just doesn't work.
All right. Well, in that case, I want to start asking you some questions about the career and acting and stuff. Because first and foremost,
Wonderful.
how acting? Why acting?
Honestly, Silas, I think like this isn't me being obtuse or anything. It's just it's so hard to say because I mean, if you don't mind me saying, it's kind of maybe the same thing as like me asking you, well, Silas, what were you? Why acting? Or like,
Well, I
you know,
can give you a number of reasons.
oh, okay, okay. Well, I mean, coming to sort of my reason, honestly, I think it's just like, I mean, me bringing the spiritual into it. I just feel like we're all kind of like born with something we're good at, and it's like, you know, throwing in some science there. That we all have that endorphin rush that kicks in when we get a kick of seeing how good we are at it, and like other people enjoying it. And that was just as simple as it was with me for acting. Like I saw that it was a thing that I happened to be good at. I enjoyed having people watch me be good at it. And then I realized, you know what, I don't think it's gonna hurt me sort of like running with this. And yeah, I've been running at it, both feet hitting the ground, soles not wearing quite away yet. And I'd say like the stage I am right now, because I've had like a fairly decent stream of paid work at the moment. Like it's going quite well, goodness willing, you know.
Nice, nice. Well done, you. And how did you go about it? Did you go like the traditional conservatoire, things like that, or did you, or
So
uni, or did you do classes?
you know what? Yes and no, I'd say, Silas. So
Okay.
I didn't go the kind of traditional drama school route, but I did get into it at university. So this would have been, I believe, mid to late 2015. It was at the start of a disastrous first year at Edinburgh Uni doing a modern languages degree.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I think because really on the surface up till that point, you know, things like acting and filmmaking, film in general, it was an interest I'd really kind of like flirted with. Like, it was, films and TVs, stuff like that, the occasional high school play. It was something I'd throw myself into, but I didn't take it seriously enough to
Right.
think like, I would love to do this as a career one day. Like, best way to put it, it's like, it's like how when you have someone you're sleeping with casually, and you're not quite ready to admit that, hey, maybe you're willing to like let this turn
This
into
is getting out of hand. This is getting serious now. We
yeah,
got a mortgage. How did this happen?
yeah, but you know what I mean. But yeah, yeah. I was on. I think it was Bristol Square. It'd be called like where those wanky skateboarders are usually near the university. And lo and behold, I saw my friend Anton Antman Kudrashov Jr., a English lit student, standing at a stall. Basically, he had like a poster for his production company, Outer Limits Productions, and that just, I just figured, screw it, why not? I'm not going to classes. I hate half the clubs here. This is the only thing here that's close to anything I'm actually interested in. So I went up, little 17-year-old me, gave him a whole spiel, rattled off like all the different sort of like accents and characters I played. And Anton, friggin' God bless him every single day. Like he took me on. He just saw something in me. He was really taken by my enthusiasm. And keep in mind, like during what was one of a very kind of like dark periods in my life, like being able to come on a set, work with him, however small the role was, although I'd, give it my all, like it was just such a great escape for me. And then I can almost remember it to the day, November 15th, 2015, just by some great blessed stroke of boredom. I sat down in the library, which at the time I was mostly using for eating my weight in cheese puffs and quietly binge
The
watching whatever.
student life. Yeah, the student life.
Yeah, of course. But getting to the point, got bored, wrote a script for a short sketch, and my God, was that the first square of light to come in this, again, this dark trap period. And I realized this is what I want to do. I don't know how the hell I'm going to figure out how the hell I'm going to do it, because I'm not finishing this languages degree in Edinburgh. I'm going to get my ass on TV. I'm going to become an actor, because I haven't felt so happy like this, not just since I started uni, but haven't known anything to make me feel like this my
Hmm.
entire life. And I need to make a life where I'm feeling like this every day. As mad as that sounds, as wonderfully mad as
Yeah,
it
no,
does.
see, that's the answer I give as well. Like we can go on and talk for hours about the many different good things acting has brought into our lives and how it helps community and what you learn about people. By the end of the day, I do it because the high I get from it beats every other high I've ever felt, and I just have the feeling of
Exactly.
like, yeah, I'm stuck. This.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not a high you can get from, anyone, anything you can drink, smoke, or screw. But yeah, no. Fortunately, my parents were extremely supportive and understanding, and yeah, in 2016, I embarked on a gap year to basically just kind of give myself time to like. I gave myself time to like pursue acting and filmmaking. So, made some great friends from an acting class, enrolled in some like screenwriting, and even like experimented with things like a smartphone filmmaking course,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and the such. And yeah, now eventually, like I decided, okay, I'll go back to school. I'll do it for film. Now, around September, I did eventually attend film school, and I'm not going to name the place because, frankly, I don't have anything particularly nice to say about their film program. But oh gosh, it was just heartbreaking because, yeah, it just went down like a lead balloon. And, not even 3 weeks in, I was just heartbroken because I was like, I don't get it. Okay, I'm back in uni now. I'm doing something I love this time. And I still feel like it's blown up in my face. Like I'm not learning anything. If anything, when I was away from uni, I was actually achieving more and getting far closer to becoming an acting and film actor and filmmaker than whatever crap I was picking up in these like
Hmm.
mind-numbing lectures. So for the second time, officially in November of 2017, I dropped out. And I mean, without getting into it too much into it, there'd been some other stuff going on, and I'd say this was probably like the second arc of my story. Because you know what? Hey, when we all pursue something, when we all make a challenge for our life, we take on new problems along with that. I'd encountered some stuff, even some people who'd really made me kind of like now suddenly question if I wanted to do acting and filmmaking. And I'd even gotten an agent by this point, and eventually around like 2018, that led to me taking a brief retirement. But I mean, during that time, this would have been like 2018 to like late 2019. That was when I'd started my career that I currently have in the museums and galleries sector, having done an apprenticeship in the subject, like I said, in 2019, and kind of working across different visitor attractions by then. And, as much as I was enjoying that, I got, like at that point in late 2019, I kind of realized, maybe I threw out the baby with the bathwater here. Like, yeah, there is a lot of kind of crappy things that go on in this industry. Um, you know, Projects that fall through, gatekeeping
Yes.
from kind of like shitty, cliquey people. And I realized, despite all that, well, that's just it. Like I love this craft despite all of that, and I'm willing to endure that. And I feel like that's what's going to make me ready to become an actor. And lo and behold, October 2019, my agent, despite me having been, a bit of a prick when I fired her, gladly took me on. We've been going on strong ever since. And I've just been like out there, checking casting calls like every evening. getting in as many indie productions, student productions as possible, and just like honing my craft.
Nice. Well done, you. I mean, yes, it's actually a interesting little journey you had there because absolutely acting can feel like, especially at this stage, it can feel like a bit of an abusive relationship that you're
Yeah.
hoping it's gonna work out in the end. So it's like that's okay, that's okay. You know, we'll talk it through. We'll reach
Well,
some
I'd
common
say
ground.
more like, yeah, more like a turbulent relationship that just like really runs hot and cold. Like you fight like
Can be,
crazy,
yeah.
but the sex is great. You know?
Okay, yeah, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Uh, yeah, no, it's I am curious about a number of things that you just mentioned, but yeah, the I can definitely relate to that. You know, having days when you're like, oh, what's going on? But luckily, I don't know, I've heard it enough that this is what it's like, and this is what it's not that it's supposed to be like, but most cases it's like this, especially the first few years, like first 5 years maybe. You know,
Mhm.
it's
It's
very
a
much.
test.
Yeah, it is. Like, and you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
learn a lot, and you have to learn, people management and expectation management and taking
Oh,
no for an answer on a regular.
honestly, Silas, I'm glad you said that because that whole thing about managing expectations, but like the element of kind of like taking no for an answer. I'd develop on that further because I'd say, regardless of talent, you want to truly make it in this industry, it goes beyond just learning how to hear no, how to deal with rejection. You need to deal with having your hopes raised. It's not just about learning how to hear no, it's about learning how to hear the yeses that turn into no's, the no's that turn into yeses and then turn back into no's and flip flop back and forth. Because, acing the audition doesn't automatically mean you're set for life. The casting director could like you, but then suddenly, the producer or director can clash with their choice and make them choose someone else. Or you get past them, but hey, you get fired after a screen test or a table read. It can happen. Or hey, the movie, the TV show does get made, or the movie does get made, but then suddenly, as you'll have seen with the Batwoman movie that was meant to come out, it gets shelved for like almost a completely inexplicable reason. Or beyond that, the show does come out, the movie does come out, but it gets cancelled or it
Or
tanks the box office. You
or
know?
if, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking as you were saying this, like you create this fantastic show that's amazing, but you for some reason you come out the same few weeks that House of Dragon comes out, and
Mhm.
guess what? No one's watching your pilot because everyone's watching House of Dragon.
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, like it happens with even big stars to this day, like
Yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, he just he had a sitcom that got cancelled literally the day it was meant to premiere. I brought up already what happened with the Batwoman movie,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Clint Eastwood, friggin' icon of Hollywood cinema across all eras, in time and space, just had a project rejected from Warner Brothers. You know what I mean? Like again, like it's not entirely certain, and yet if you love this industry and you love this craft despite the temperament, how both exceedingly cruel and kind it can be, that is how you know you're ready to be an actor, producer, writer, or whatever. That's how you know you belong here. It
So in
really
that
comes from,
case,
yeah.
that immediately brings up the question, my friend, how did you figure out to deal with that? How did you make your peace with that?
Honestly, Silas,
Have you made your peace with it? I mean,
oh no, I would say I have. I honestly have. And for me, Silas, like how I came to peace with it was like, well, a certain person and his story, and that would be Kevin Hart, one of my favorite stand-up comedians. And if you or anyone who's watching this interview hasn't done so already, please check out his audiobook, I Can't Make This Up. It is, I don't know, whatever you're going through in life, whatever you're striving towards in life, it is honestly like a tale of strength that will embolden you to it once more. Because Kevin Hart, as much of an icon as he is of of film and like of the kind of like comedy world, he was actually someone who was meant to have kind of like blown up much like longer ago. Like, he'd started his stand-up career in the late 90s. For the first 5 years, he went through the grind that like any stand-up comedian does, performing for like, driving 2 hours for like $20 gigs at like some college in another state.
$20? Oh, if you get paid, you're lucky, my friend.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Getting screwed over by promoters. At one point he performed at a strip club, which doubled at a comedy club, where like have to deal with being heckled by like legit like gang members and thugs. And after those 5 years, finally lands a pilot, finally lands a lead role in a movie, gets his own sitcom. He's like 24, 25, like my age by then. He figured he had it made, and then boom, suddenly his pilot gets cancelled. His movie, oh, sorry, I accidentally flipped it. His movie bombs at the box office, like to the point of breaking film history because like it got bootlegged so much. And his sitcom, this was really weird. It got shelved at the last minute, and then aired, and then got cancelled after one season. Now, my God, like I remember, like each time I listen to that, just like I think like how the hell this guy was standing, because like that kind of humiliation alone, having your
That's
hopes dashed on that kind of a level, like that would bring most people to suicide, let alone like retirement. And yet, what did
that's
Kevin Hart do?
that's a
He
strong combo. That's a
Exactly, yeah. Like, and what did he do? He persevered anyway. He went back, did what worked for him at the beginning, but just on like a whole other level, just like harder and stronger than ever. And then, well, he just came back stronger than ever, and he's freaking unstoppable. And it's like, man, if you can survive something like that, I mean, rather better yet, if he can survive something like that, I can. And I take great how do you say reprise in that, like reassurance in that, because I saw what happened when he survived it, and it just means like
yeah.
I'm gonna get to an even better place, and that freaking excites me.
Yeah, that's fair enough, man. That's fair enough.
Like, because I'll tell you, Silas, I had actually two recent instances of, I mean, not on something like not on par with what Kevin Hart went through, but rather like something of that whole thing where I had a yes that turned into a no. So I'll keeping like certain details anonymous.
Of course, there's NDAs and such.
Yeah, like just recently, I booked a role in like a student film. I really vibed with the producer and the director instantly. It like had instant chemistry with my co-stars. Like I was pretty much perfect for the role, but unfortunately, they had like a rather kind of like set pair of dates for the shoot, and one of them, which they could not change, clashed with my current day job. So I had to pull out of the project. On the other side of that, I had a paid job that I'd been on, through my agent for months. But with the company, there'd been an issue with their payroll system. And, they were saying that, they wouldn't be able to pay us till like January, maybe even next November.
Hmm.
So, we had to pull out of that until they could pay us. I mean, this one has a happier ending because they've paid us some of the money so far, but they've still to catch up. But again, like it just barely phased me really, because it's that whole thing. Like again, I would have felt much shittier if I didn't get a chance to audition for or try out for these roles altogether. I didn't lose to myself in the sense I was rather sorry, I'm getting muddled here. Basically, again, I heard a yes that turned into a no, and that no didn't hit me. I was unfazed by it as much as just hearing a straight no, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's you're very correct that yeah, you have to prepare yourself mentally for dealing with this kind of stuff, but it's almost it teaches you very much how to appreciate even the the half wins. Like I didn't get the second part, but I was brought back for an audition. Or
Yeah, yeah, like a
things like
recall.
that. I got this far. I didn't get to the very end, but I got this far. And you learn how to almost break down and sort of salvage
Mhm.
whatever the loss was. You break it down and find the smallest victories, and you focus on those because they count. They really do count.
Exactly. Exactly. Like really, what you saw is just kind of like a start and a stop. Well, that was just a temporary stop on the way to like, your true destination, that next big break.
It
You
just
know,
or it's about building up momentum. It's about getting
yeah,
that
and
team recognition.
some yeah, and something my agent always tells like the other actors at our agency is like, you know, because keep in mind, like the auditions we get through them, this is cases of casting directors seeing our profiles that our agents have posted and reaching out to our agents to see us to come audition for them. And that our agents are very emphatic about that, and that really helps to know because it's like, oh wow, like because you know what I mean, like it makes the process a lot less intimidating. You're not seeing the casting directors, these gatekeepers. You're realizing that, oh wow, they're really needing help from us as much as we are kind of needing sort of like a leg up from them, and
Well,
it's
what
just compliment. It's like it's so flattering and thrilling and complimenting to know like they're having all these like analytical conversations about you and sort of like justifying how well you fit the character, and like the whole process of it really fascinates me, like
it is fascinating. There's so many moving parts that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of
Like I don't
yeah.
know
All
if
right.
like you should really sorry, I know I'm like totally steamrolling here, but I
No, no,
promise
no.
it's
This
just
is about you, mate.
okay, got you. Sorry. But like, have you? I don't know if you've heard of him. He's this YouTuber called Brian Seeker, and it's so cool. He does like all these like recasts and like fan casts of movies.
Ah, okay.
Like and like again like he uses this he's great sort of like analysis of like who the characters are and how they fit with the like actors he would decide, and
Interesting.
it's almost like a wonderful fascinating sort of science, like it
It
works so
is.
if you're an
I'm
actor
sorry,
and
we're gonna have to take a quick welcome back before we go rudely interrupted by Zoom. Yes, so as you were saying, you're quite passionately
of
going into this
course so
topic, which is
yeah.
the science of, and the science, the art, the mystery of
Of
casting people.
forecasting, yeah. Because honestly, for anyone who's an actor or anyone who's an aspiring casting director, please do check Brian Seeker's channel out. Because honestly, it just gives you a tremendous appreciation and understanding of how casting directors think when choosing characters for certain roles. And honestly, you know, it really goes to show like it isn't just about talent, like although it may sound superficial, looks do place into it.
Well,
You do have like let me put it this way, Silas, right? Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, both amazing actors, right? Now I don't know if you know this, but like for like in pre-production for Thor, Tom Hiddleston was actually originally auditioning for the role of Thor before he got rejected and cast in the role of Loki instead.
yeah.
And again, as I've established before, he's just as great an actor as Chris Hemsworth. But it's like, we look 11 years on since that movie and how amazing Tom Hiddleston is in that role. Like, he really, the casting directors very clearly made the right decision there.
And there's,
And,
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, man. Like sometimes it can be ridiculous thing that you just can't help, Because I
I,
mean, like there's
yeah,
always the element of like the on-screen chemistry, which is important. That something that
of
you can have,
course,
it can be
yeah.
more personable, less personable. But sometimes it simply comes down to things like height.
Well, I mean,
And it might
personally,
not be
like,
your height. It might be your
yeah,
co-star's height. It might be the
yeah,
fact that the characters you're playing. It's a bit like Sudoku that once you start, you need to figure out if that's the right number, and sometimes you have to go back around and start all over again because
yeah,
if
yeah,
you pick this, if it's a family you're casting, you pick the dad, you pick the mom. Now you have to pick the kids, but maybe some famous kid actor comes along, so now I have to change the dad because you're like the studio says we want the kid, get rid of the dad, get someone else to
yeah,
play the
yeah.
dad, and you're like, oh,
Yeah, of course. But I mean, although it, like I said, though, Silas, although it can sound superficial, like when you kind of like look into sort of like history of like what actors were being considered for certain roles, who almost got it, and why not, and then you look at the actual finished product, you will kind of usually see like it does usually, make sense, to be honest. So I I I can totally get it. I mean, like it can even be something like, as simple as like, say if like you're auditioning for the supporting role in like a TV show, but say maybe you look too physically similar, or your voice sounds too similar to like the actual lead actor who they already cast in that show. And so unfortunately, although you're talented, it would kind of make sense then for casting to have to go with a different actor, because when that show comes out, if they do cast you, it's going to be really distracting for the audience if they have a main character they're meant to focus on, but there's also a supporting character who looks and almost sounds exactly like the lead actor.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? But
absolutely.
like, it is interesting though to have that kind of like a debate about it, of
Yeah,
course.
and there's a realistic chance that in the casting room and the director and the producer are like, well, listen, we only have one lead actor in this, we can't have two, so
Yeah,
or
exactly, exactly. This town's not big enough for the two of us. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, things like that. Yeah, things like that. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what has sort of entertained me and sort of calmed me down a little bit was, have you seen Call My Agent? I've seen watched a little bit of the French
Yeah,
version.
yeah. I
And
will be honest. This is going to make me sound very stuck up. I only watched like the original like French version. It was called 10%.
yeah, yeah, I prefer to watch original stuff as well because it's just because I want to see what it's like and it's different. I see a lot of English and American production, so I actively try to
Like,
seek out different ones.
yeah, like I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a remake. Maybe they're part of like the same universe as like 10%. I do know there is like the British version and the Indian version, but I don't know. I just prefer the French version, really. Probably because like me being fluent in French, I just need to kind of brush up on the language.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
monsieur.
I don't know. Like I do tend
Humble
to get
brag,
really
huh?
kind of stuck up about those sort of remakes. Like I know, like the American remake of BBC Ghosts is apparently out now. Like that's been managing to
Mhm.
run for 4 seasons, but that you are gonna have to like pretty much fight me tooth and nail to the death to get me to watch that
But
shit. Like I'm
point
sorry.
I
Like,
was trying to get to, my friend, the point I was trying to get to
oh,
was no worries, no worries, is the fact that watching this series, and obviously it's a comedy, is heightened. There's things like it's slightly exaggerated, but you get a feel of like the madness that it is, and you take a step back and you go, "Ah, we're all in the same, crazy
oh,
fucking industry." Okay,
yeah, yeah,
like it humanizes these people more a bit because you're like, they're not just the person that says no to you, they're the person like trying to stay sane at the end of the day. And interestingly enough, as we're talking about this casting stuff, it does play. Now you understand why there's casting types. Why there's, I hate casting types in the sense that I want to be able to play all kinds of roles and not
of
just
course,
like
yeah,
I'm from Eastern Europe. The amount of Eastern European gangster and pimp and
yeah.
that come my way, it's like, bruv, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, yeah,
in a way, like it makes sense, but you kind of understand why it happens when you know that the amount of drama and madness that goes on behind the scenes. Sometimes it just get me a person that can do the thing, and I don't have to like it's one less thing to worry about. Can you do? Okay, Eastern European pimp, lovely. Let's go. I don't. I mean, they don't say
oh,
that,
that's
but
not just realness to that example.
But
uh,
you get what I mean. That it's you can see why types are a thing.
oh, of course, of course. I mean, I would say typecasting can only become like kind of like annoying when it becomes like obvious, like with actors like Matthew Perry or Topher Grace, where it's like, okay, this isn't really a whole thing where like, oh, they're playing another like smarmy, like non-threatening handsome guy, not non-threateningly handsome guy. Yeah, this is just Matthew Perry being Matthew Perry. This is just Topher Grace being Topher Grace. But coming back to what you said about how like there is that kind of like frustration of being pigeonholed, like
Yeah.
like you said, like getting put in the Eastern European gangster box. Me, because I've got kind of like a guy next door type of thing going for me. I am totally open to kind of staying in that pigeonhole in the moment, but my sort of ambition going forward is like I can do what Johnny Depp did, where it was like he had like sort of a niche character that he fit into a while at the start of his career, and then once his brand was established, then he could start like doing all these like different kind of
Well, yeah, I
transformative things.
think
Because that way, Silas, when you have an established brand, when you do all these different characters after it, it has a bigger impact on your audience because they have something to contrast and compare. Like,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh wow, this actor, I knew him for a couple of years as this teen heartthrob, but oh my god, suddenly he's this creepy outcast with scissors for fingers. Oh, now he's this runner of a chocolate factory who kind of looks like Michael Jackson for some reason. Oh, now he's this like alcoholic pirate. Do you know what I
And I
mean?
get what you mean. Yeah, I get what like you need some sort of precedent to be compared against, and if every role is it's different, you can make an argument that the audience is like, well, who are you? You know. But then again, that is the definition of acting. So at some point, that's one of those that can go either way things. But
Yeah.
but what you definitely touched upon, which I love, and it's I'm a student of this game, Triple H quote for no reason, but basically is the career is in phases, right? Like this industry comes in phases, and the first phase is you do what you're told. That is the first phase,
Exactly.
and hopefully,
The
if
first priority is getting any work at all. Then it's getting any paid work at all. Then it's getting enough paid work to where you're just doing it as a career. Then getting enough paid work to where you can actually be a little selective about what you do. Me, honestly, Silas, I would want to get to the like fifth phase where I've just made enough money at acting to then just do it for free again.
I
You
mean,
know?
fair enough, yeah, sure, why not, my friend? But yeah, I mean, life is long enough. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed, right? I'm not gonna.
Exactly.
I'm not saying no to making a killing in this biz, but yeah, it is. There's something to talk about how just learning what phase you're in and how to get to the next phase and trying to focus on that as opposed to you know it, there's a lot to learn from the people that made it, but you also need to learn not to copy what they're doing now. You need to see what they were doing before. Like you can't, you know,
What they did to stand out.
you absolutely cannot be doing whatever a star is doing this day and age. Like you cannot. Do not go to the set with that
Impossible.
attitude
Mhm.
because you're on your way
Yeah,
out
not
day
this
one.
early in your career. Yeah, yeah. It depends. You got to stay a little while before they're like willing to tolerate that from you. But I mean, the thing is though, because I remembered when I was listening to Michael Caine's autobiography, another great recommendation,
Hmm.
Blowing the Bloody Doors Off. He did kind of say, because he's obviously been in the game a while, like he did say that sort of behavior is kind of like less tolerated these days.
Like
Like
should be.
it's more like people would more really prefer kind of like competent professionalism over like
But I'm
erratic
not even
behavior.
start. I wouldn't even say you go to the set drunk. Like don't be. I don't care. You can be Johnny Depp. You will piss me off. You can be whoever the biggest star. You will piss me off. You come to set drunk. I'm sorry. That's you're wasting everyone's time. You're wasting my time. I don't care. You're a star about that. Try to be professional, please. But No, it's just even the thing that how you go about the business and how you try to negotiate. If you get to negotiate, at my level, I don't really get to negotiate stuff. You know,
Of course,
like this is
yeah,
what we're
yeah.
gonna pay you. Fingers crossed that is the right. Like if it's technically like less than the minimum wage and things, then I'll be like, come on now. Like I don't want to be
Yeah, like
sabotaging the industry
if
either.
it's like yeah, if it's like you're getting £50 to like for a role that you're gonna have to be spending like a total of £150 to make the 2 hour journey to get set, and they're not even covering your travel or whatever. Yeah, of
I'm
course,
like,
like
okay,
it's got
bro.
to be proportionate.
Yeah,
At the end
absolutely.
of the day. Ah, yes. Of course. Just like making sure I get this in like before we end. I did mention there was a project I was trying to get off the ground, just to
Hmm.
kind of bulk up my acting resume.
Go
So
on.
basically, Silas, I've written it myself, hoping to produce it and act in it. It's basically a short crime drama called All for One. So it revolves around these three characters, two brothers. I should remember the names for all the characters. Two brothers, Paul and David, who run a company with their friend Mark. Um, David, he's kind of like the screw up between the two brothers. Because of this, he's got kind of like a closer relationship with Mark.
Listen, I'm just don't give away too much because people want to watch the movie when you make it, my friend.
Of course, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Um, I mean, don't worry. I'm only talking about the stuff I'm supposed to give away. So basically, he's got closer relationship with their sort of shared friend Mark, because he doesn't kind of criticize him as much as his brother Paul does. Now, David, he one day murders his girlfriend and her husband after the husband caught him in the middle of doing the do. He calls over Mark to just kind of like get his help with it, and then he calls over um, Paul to basically just like clean up their mess. So it's them covering up a murder.
Right.
And yeah, what I'm hoping to kind of give the audience from that is this scenario where it's like you have these three shitty people who've done a very shitty thing. And I just want my audience to be able to sit there and just kind of like have the thrill of like seeing like if they're gonna get what's coming to them, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that sort of thing.
right. Right.
Hold on. Sorry. I do apologize for that. It's been so annoying. Like I
I'm
swear
just
my
dancing. Basically, I need to keep the audience entertained, so I want to
yeah.
just dance.
Like honestly, like I swear, it's a miracle my face hasn't grown legs with how runny my nose has been. Like I
Ah,
was
not to worry, my friend. Not
like
to worry.
I was legit trying to like play about with the physics. I was just kind of like having my head like
No worries.
slowly tilted up, just hoping it would just absorb back into my face.
No,
Okay, so
life
awkward moment
happens.
there.
Life
Keep it
happens.
for the Reddit, keep
It
it
is
for the
what it
Reddit
is.
cringe compilation. But yeah, like I said, that's what it is. It is three shitty people. They've done a shitty thing, and when it's when we can get this produced as soon as possible, I want the audience to just have the thrill of like watching it to see if they're going to get their comeuppance. And I'm using a lot of sort of like ifs about it being produced because unfortunately, my friend who's currently studying in Glasgow, he's been having a very kind of like rough second year at uni. So because it was kind of difficult for him to kind of stay in touch with me, we eventually got to the point where we both had to mutually agree that he would need to kind of like step off from the project.
I
He's
see.
of
Okay.
course been immensely helpful with what he's contributed so far. Like he's given me some great notes on the initial first draft of the script. So I'm gonna be like having that polished by this Friday, and I'm hoping to find a new director and a new actor for the role I was going to cast my friend in before the end of this month. If not, big gulp of air. I'm gonna have to step up to the plate as director, and you know what? Screw it. Time to kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, yeah,
back out
exactly.
of my comfort zone. You know?
I mean, the only thing worse than yeah, I mean, people are always worried about having a bad, project. But if you're doing it yourself and it's from the ground up, the only thing worse than having a bad one is not having anything. Like, start somewhere.
Actually, not getting a chance at all.
People are always, terrified of like embarrassing themselves. But as long as you're honest, as long as you're not lying to people, saying you're gonna see the best film we've ever made or whoever's ever made. As long as you're like, listen, this is the first we did. We tried really hard. This is what it is. people will be like, okay, cool, I might not like it, but you know what?
Yeah,
Fair play.
and you learn from it too. Whatever happens with it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, that's a great point, Silas. Like, I would honestly, I would much rather have a script go fully through production, be savaged by audiences and critics, than to say watch it fester in development hell for
Yeah.
God knows how many years,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and live the rest of my life and die, tormented by the idea of what
Yeah.
could have been if we'd gotten the right funding, what could have been if all our schedules lined up, or this producer had just given me that 10-15 minutes in the room.
Yeah. Fair
That
play.
I would
Fair
feel
play.
much worse. But
Um,
don't know.
I mean, this brings two questions to mind before we go into about you writing, because I'm curious about your writing process a little bit. I wanted to ask you something because we talked about casting types and things like that, and I wanted to ask if you being from Sri Lanka and being a Sri Lankan Scottish person, if that has come into play, if how's that been affecting the roles you've been offered, how you're perceived, how you're not perceived, things like that.
Honestly, Silas, I'm very fortunate to say that that hasn't like hindered me in any way whatsoever. I'm very grateful to have entered the industry and come of age in this industry in the era that I'm in, really. Not just in terms of how progressive things are, but like also of how there's such a wealth of access to channels to like make your own content. But yeah, in terms of the roles that I've been getting, like I said, like I'm very lucky to have not either been kind of like put into the camps of like getting characters where their entire personality is just their race, or just
Yeah,
getting
yeah, yeah.
characters where they are ethnic minority, but they're not written in a respectful way. You like just recently, I did like a comedy sketch with like a South Asian character, and although there was callback to his kind of like Muslim background, his cultural background, the one time it was brought up, and this was credit to like the skill of the writer, it was still done in a way that was incredibly respectful, but also played into the depth of the character and even the comedy of the character's
Yeah,
quirks.
yeah, yeah.
But again, without making it seem like you were laughing at the character, but more like laughing with him. You know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we all want to work. I'm saying this is again as an East European, like we all want to work, and you can rail
But we want
against
work we
casting
can take
types.
pride in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But at the same time, I'm like it's you gotta like at this stage, you kind of gotta have to put up with it in a sense that like you're gonna have to play some roles that not that you hate or not that disrespect the culture, but that are like they're not that much. You're only showing one facet of your background because
Mhm.
at least you get employed and you get seen, and then you can, on top of that, you can start building and being like, okay, you've seen us like this, now imagine us like that as well.
Exactly.
But that there has to be a line. I'm trying to think because I'm like I haven't been offered the part yet where I was like I'm not doing that under any circumstance. But I think yeah, there would be somewhere I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. Like honestly, for me, Silas, I would say regardless of how whether it's paid or not, this is just factoring in the stage I am in my career, because
Mhm.
basically, although I'm proud of the work I've done so far, I am an unknown. Um, I would definitely draw the bar if it was a project that required me to be like sort of like physically or like where I'm playing a character who's being like physically or sort of like sexually humiliated in any way, even though like again, even though it's not for real, like it's just in a scene. um just with me being like kind of like an unknown right now, that, and me being at still the beginning of my career, I wouldn't quite take on a project like that yet. I would wait until like I've done more kind of work, I've established my name a bit more, kind of like established more career for myself as an actor.
Yeah,
I don't want to start off being known as the guy who's been having God knows what done to. I mean, see, I can't even like properly like articulate a hypothetical scenario because like the idea of doing something like that so early in my career just makes me scream even alone just thinking of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but at the same time, just to because I'm thinking about this as you're talking about it, but any role you do is going to be the first you'll somebody sees. You can
Mhm.
be established, but at some point that's going to be the first impression to someone. So the question is, you kind of playing the numbers game a bit of like, okay, but maybe a number of people or enough people will see other stuff before they see this. I
Mhm.
guess you can play that game. This
Mhm.
is an interesting sort of aspect I
Debate,
haven't
yeah,
considered yet of like,
because
what.
like, you're right, it is your first impression with someone, you know.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't get to pick, what people see.
Mhm.
And, but hopefully, again, yeah, I guess it comes back to hopefully you have enough other things that even if people look up your name, they see, okay, that's not the only thing they've done other stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're not just like they're not, you're not just going to be like cemented in their head as like this pathetic, person who got humiliated on screen. Like,
But
oh
then,
god.
but then you've got character like I'm thinking Philip Seymour Hoffman, who talked about he wanted to play the losers and he wanted to play the people that were, sort of not just downtrodden, but somewhat repulsive sometimes or pathetic.
Mhm.
Like he actively wanted to play that, and he made a career out of it. And so I mean, it became more and more because then he ended up playing a cult leader that does not resemble Scientology at all. Uh,
It's an allegory. Yeah, they want
it's
you to
it's
remember
it's not
that.
yeah, it's not about that. It's an allegory, as you said. But but yeah, so it is one of those things where yeah, I get the point you're making.
Mhm.
I haven't really thought about that as much, I guess. I haven't actually this is the first time I'm having this conversation about this and I'm trying to think of what I would choose. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I'm quite happy you brought up this question because that's something I have to consider now.
It's very thought provoking. Yeah, yeah. Can make a whole other interview about it.
Fair enough, fair
Because
enough.
it does pose a dilemma. Like, I don't want to be cemented. Like, if I want to I want my breakout role, like, which is gonna kind of cement my image, in sort of like the minds and like the eyes of like people who are experiencing me for the first time properly. It's like I don't know. I just don't want it to be as that guy who's being like physically or sexually humiliated in that certain scene in that certain movie. Like, I don't know. It's just not how I want to start off my journey.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can't argue with that, and I won't argue with
Yeah,
that. But yeah, that's
yeah.
something to think about. Like how much control you actually have about how you're going to be perceived. What's,
Exactly. Like,
what is going to be your breakout role? Like you don't know
exactly. Like,
unless you get
yeah.
cast in the lead of a Disney, production or the next Star Wars, and
That's different.
some.
I don't think yeah, that's more stuff Disney does behind the scenes rather than on screen. But yeah,
No, but I meant no, I meant like
that could
like you
be a
don't get to
whole
choose what's your breakout role unless it's like an obvious big one.
yeah. But
You,
it does kind of call into that sort of question of it's like, you kind of have to weigh up the cost between like, yes, this could potentially be like a slingshot street stardom, but like at what cost of my dignity? And then it's like at what, factor in the cost of your dignity, like you got to factor in like the how many more years towards you getting that possibly other big break is that going to cost you as well?
see, I
You
want
know,
to ask you something about
if
the
you're not
whole thing with the big
qualifying yet
breaks,
by
right?
then.
That's something I want to ask you because I feel like we're always, especially actors, we are chasing big breaks, right?
Mhm,
But I'm kind of got to that point where like I'm actively like I don't believe in the big break anymore because
mhm.
like yeah, it gives you more opportunity, sure, but I'm like if your career can be made by a single role or by a couple of roles, it means it can be broken by a couple of roles.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And I feel
Because
like
you
that's an unhealthy sort of
mentality.
pressure, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
Ex-
don't care how big your break is,
mhm.
you're gonna have to keep working afterwards.
Exactly. Exactly. You still got to hustle. Like again, Silas. I'm so glad we're getting on the same pages here because, like, I can't tell you enough the amount of times like I've seen actors from like hit movies and TV shows, like pretty much icons of their era, going pretty much like right back to the same roles that they were groveling for when they first started out. Like, I mean, I'm probably using a fairly obscure example, like, Crispin Glover, whose sort of like breakout role was as like Marty McFly's dad in Back to the
Yeah.
Future. That was a very principal role. And then it's like just about a decade after that, he's, I don't know, some random guy in that Larry Flint movie that Woody Harrelson did. And he has maybe like 10, 15 lines throughout the entire film. He's
I think Crispin Glover's been doing all right. I've seen him pop up in other stuff. He was one of the gods in American Gods. He was one of the new.
okay. I mean, like I only recently remember him as like the one-armed bell-hopping hot tub time machine. Like,
Fair enough.
oh yeah, yeah. But
No, he's
again, like
playing out their characters. He's playing out their characters, is what you're saying.
yeah, but like yeah, yeah. I mean, like it just goes to show, like even when you win, no matter how big you win, you can still lose. Like better example actually, Jason Momoa. Oh, I mean, this was pretty shocking. Like he was apparently on the edge of poverty for years. In the time between he did Game of Thrones and like Justice League. Like again, edge of poverty for like a couple years. Like when he just come off of doing Game of Thrones, which like
Yeah.
that was like hot shit back in the like that dominated like the public discourse of like early 2010s
Yeah.
prime time TV.
And I remember the actor who played Aladdin in the live action remake with Will Smith being the genie. And I remember the actor playing Aladdin saying, I couldn't get a role after that for like 4 years or something like that.
Oh gosh.
Or I don't know if it was 4 years, but like for years after it anyway. And I'm like, that's tough. That is tough. But at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, I'm like, that's why there's a part of me that goes, yeah, but what are you creating on your own? Because when I sit
What
back
were
and
you
if you
doing
look
your
at
own luck? Yeah.
yeah, you were Aladdin. You were Aladdin. Like you can capitalize on like create your own stuff and be like Aladdin from Disney. This does this film or does this theater show or something. And I'm not saying they weren't. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, and I don't want to again cast aspersions because I actually do not know the full context.
Yeah, the full
So I
story.
guess I'm just going to mention the fact that for like years he would not get cast in big projects, which is something to keep in mind. But the other thing that sort of brings up in my mind is the fact that if you look at the biggest stars, Kevin Hart, The Rock, you look at don't do this to me, brain right now. What's the
Mm.
oh god, I forgot the lady's name who's got her own production company. It's coming to me in a second. She
Is
was
she an actress as well by any
yeah,
chance? Like,
she's an actress. She's an actress, and she played Jennifer Aniston's sister in Friends. Oh, my brain.
Reese Witherspoon.
Yes, her, Reese Witherspoon. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, so basically, these are all people that, you can consider at the top of the game, right? Ryan Reynolds, there's another one. Top of the game.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. Brad
Have their
Pitt.
own production companies, create their own projects, have other businesses. I'm not talking about the other
Like
businesses right now.
launching off of the clout they previously had, even.
Yeah,
And
but
that
also they
got
haven't
those
stopped working. The
yeah.
Rock still, The Rock still has people writing roles for him.
There we go.
Biggest star in the
Exactly,
world
yeah.
right now, arguably.
Yeah, and coming back to Kevin Hart, like he still has Heartbeat Productions, you know?
Yeah.
As
So,
corny as that name sounds, like it's still going very
I
strong.
mean, it's a pun. It's a pun.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like that was something like I'd even done like around early on in my career, because even though like I'd had like the small parts from like acting in Anton's like web series and stuff, yeah, I did initially kind of struggle like getting roles from auditions. And like very early on in my career, again, with the exception of like the roles Anton gave me, a lot of my gigs were in short films that I wrote and direct and produced for myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, as it went from there, that beefed up my resume. It gave me enough material for a show reel, which in turn gave me enough like sort of like not necessarily clout, but experience to like act in like other roles written by other people. And I just figured why not do a bit of both? Like roles I'm getting given externally, but also make my own luck too.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's
Get
fair.
an extra clover onto the three-leaf clover while I'm at it. And if
Yeah.
I get a four-leaf clover too, bonus.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, a lot of the times, like in training, we hear a lot about this. Like if you want to be an actor, if you want to be an artist, you have to focus on one thing and become a master of the one thing. You don't want to do too many things. And I'm like, yes and no. Like, okay, you don't want to do too many things. You don't want to do too many things that are not connected to each other at all. Sure.
Mhm.
But it feels self-sabotaging to only have one arrow in your quiver, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You can
And
get pigeonholed, and you don't know if it's like you know, you put all of your eggs in that one basket, say like what's going to happen when maybe that basket becomes particularly obsolete and people want a different type of basket, a different type of thing to hold the eggs, and you don't know how to make that. I may have got mixed up with the metaphor, but
no,
I'm
no,
clear.
I get what you mean.
I'm very much on like the fourth page, very much getting another swig of water as well.
Yeah, and just thinking about this, like especially in this era where distribution is more or less guaranteed for free for everyone. Like you got YouTube,
Exactly, like
Patreon.
exactly like your channel, especially Silas. Like, I mean, if you were a young sort of like actor, interviewer coming up in like the 80s or 90s, like basically pre-internet, you would have had to like grovel and pitch,
Yeah, I mean
to sort of like gatekeeping studios were out there for you to even.
that, or you'd have to do a lot of theater stuff, and hopefully, try to get as many people watch that in your town. But now with the era of the internet, you can appeal to a market that's all around the globe,
Exactly, yeah.
except
I
North
mean,
Korea
yeah,
potentially and some of
yeah,
China.
of course, yeah. I mean, of course, like that medium has its own challenges too, but like I said, it's granted equal parts its own freedoms as well. And
Yeah,
of all the things, like of course, like with us, having come through two recessions and a pandemic, if there is one of the few things us younger people are lucky for, it's like, hey, you want people to see you act, you want people to see anything you've created, you can just do it at the press of a couple buttons on your phone you
yeah,
know
yeah.
it's great.
This we're coming to the 5 minute mark of this section, so I'm gonna ask you a sort of lighter question, and then we'll take another break, and then we'll come back
Yeah.
to my go-to closing questions. But I wanted to ask about, how have you been finding writing? Have you noticed any overlaps between writing and acting? How has it, helped your acting, or has your acting helped your writing? There's a
Oh,
lot.
honestly, I would say like the only thing I've noticed about the writing process and just really loved, and something I'd hope to pass on to anyone watching here, is just like the freedom that really comes with the first draft. Because really, honestly, that is the funnest part of the writing process, because you just need to focus on like finishing the bloody thing. That's it.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to suck. Like I'll never forget something like one of my tutors from the BFI Film Academy told me, is that at the end of the day, good writing is rewriting. Like when you come back to it as the second draft, because you know how like we all like nitpick whenever we see like a shitty movie or something. That's what you're meant to do when writing the second draft. You're basically being made to like read through, like watch through a shitty movie, and where that you now have the opportunity to step in and fix. Because
Yeah.
when you get into like sort of fixing it and retooling it during the first draft, getting stuck in that space of overthinking, that's what's going to slow you down. It's so much easier when it's finished, and then you have the full hindsight to look back and see what you've done wrong,
Yeah.
as you would
Yeah.
with other people's work.
As someone who's been writing this play for almost a year now, I feel you. That's a kick up my bum. I need to go and get that done now. I really want to finish the
Exactly.
play.
There we go. Fire me undercarriage of ass.
Yes, yes. No, that's yeah, there is something about I think a lot of us when we set out something, I feel like this is a mantra that we all live, not all, but a lot of people live by. It's just like when you're gonna do something, do it properly, right? And
Exactly.
that
You're going to dedicate your time to it for God's sake.
yeah, but that
You know?
assumes that you know how to do it properly from the get-go. Or that you know all the problems that are gonna come up along the way. So now you're like, but I'm not doing it properly. Like I need to. No, you just need to finish the fucking thing as well as you can. Once it's finished, sit back,
Mhm.
have a tea, have a whiskey, have a cigar, have a glass of milk, and
Do
then
what Stephen King does, lock it in a drawer for a week and then come back to it with fresh eyes, you know?
yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Just finish it as bad as you as well as you can right now. But forget about how it's supposed to be. Just do what you do. Yeah, just puke up the words and
Exactly.
then take it from there.
Because,
Well,
I mean, really, yeah, yeah,
I know
sorry, I
this
was.
thing. Now I'm just gonna. I know this thing. I just have to do it.
Mhm.
Eh?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, to anyone watching, like any writers, any writers you particularly idolize, just remember they didn't start out as geniuses. They had years of sucking and failing and flopping before they finally got it right. And you know what? Yeah, okay, there are that rare few who get it right the first time, but guess what? They eventually go on to fuck it up later. Like
Yeah. No.
Kevin Smith. Yeah, Kevin Smith knocked out the park with Clerks when he was like barely 24, but then he made Mallrats, and then he learned from that fucking flop, and then he made Chasing Amy, and then well, okay, Kevin Smith, to be honest, with his more recent films, he might not be the best example, but I'm hoping there's something you'll have taken away from that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We're gonna
Yeah,
take a quick break and we're gonna come right back. Okay, my friend.
awesome. So, shall we come back in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Something like that. Yeah. Welcome back, Adi. In
Awesome,
that
great to
case,
be back.
I've got the final two questions that I love asking people. One of them is you being a creative. Um, you had a lot of crazy jobs to pay the bills. If there's any crazy job that stood out to you that you got paid for in the industry or something that you did to pay the bills, doesn't matter. Hit me with it now.
Oh, that is a good question. I mean, because the thing is, I'm sticking that sort of keyword being crazy. Um, would I be able to give you a job like that's at least like interesting?
It can be anything. It can be
Yeah,
crazy
sure,
boring. I don't care as long as it was
no
crazy.
problem. Well, okay, bit of a leap. Well, earlier on this year, I was a premier banking officer for NatWest. So,
Right.
what that entailed was, like, you know how when you phone up your bank to do things like deposits or like check
Mm-hmm.
balance, like stuff like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. The
I'm talking
customer
like that.
service side.
Yeah, yeah. It was that, but for like rich and famous people. And I mean, I would say that was crazy in the sense of just like I just kind of went
Go
crazy
on.
working there. Like it was just super high pressure. Like because it's because at the end of the day, like you're working with people's finances. It's a matter as delicate as their physical health. So really, it's one of those jobs where there's no such thing as a small mistake. Like any mistake is a huge mistake, and they were lovely people. They did everything they could help, to help me kind of like be a bit more comfortable there. But yeah, come May, I was just pretty much burnt out. But like, fortunately, I'm back in another sort of museums job. It's going
All
well,
right.
settling in really well. Got another shift there tomorrow. It's as a welcome host and evening guide at the Royal Yacht Britannia. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's something I
Very,
was pretty
very
proud to
upmarket.
do.
Very, very fancy, is it not?
Yes, yes, of
Royal
course, of
Yacht
course.
Britannia. Marvelous. Absolutely
Yeah,
smashing.
yeah. Aye. I mean, honestly, because if I'm corrected, Silas, you're Edinburgh based or Glasgow based?
I'm Glasgow based.
Glasgow based. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, because I was gonna say like you could probably stop by. I mean, if you're ever in Edinburgh, who knows?
Oh,
But
yeah, I do
yeah,
go visit sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was the second question you had planned?
The second question I like to go with, my friend, is about food. So, in your specific
Oh,
case, what's the Sri Lankan dish that people need to know about, in your
oh
humble
gosh.
opinion?
I mean, I suppose like because it's hard to say.
Well, listen, what is
Because
it
I
that
feel like
you
my
love that
dad
you
has
like
his
to?
own recipes. Oh,
Huh?
sambole. Like it's something like you have with rice. I don't know what exactly it's made of, but it's amazing. Like it's basically like coconut flakes, I guess, like mixed through with like chili and lime. It's amazing. Sambole. Definitely recommend it with
What?
rice.
So hang on,
It's
was this a curry? Is this what am I thinking here?
like you would normally have it with curry and rice. It's amazing, honestly.
Is it
Sambole.
chicken?
Yeah.
Is it veg? Is it?
No, no, no. It's just like from what I gather, it's like coconut flakes mixed through with like chili and like lime.
And that's it.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to look this up. I need to any desserts I need to know about.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, I want to see things like a kulfi or gulab jamun, but they're more like Indian desserts, really. I should really think on that.
I mean, listen. If that's what you love, you can. This is your moment to
Heck yeah.
recommend, to shine, to you know, educate the masses about food they need to know about.
Exactly, exactly. Keep them aware. Well, yeah, honestly, Silas, it's been great meeting you, mate. And hey, if I'm ever in Glasgow, you're over in Edinburgh, like sort of vice versa.
Will do.
Do not
Thank you
hesitate
very
to hit
much.
me up.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop the recording now.